welcome everyone to the Mint City Soccer Show. I'm your host / producer extraordinaire tonight, which could be a bad idea, but we'll see how it goes. David Gusler. But I've got two great friends of the show tonight. No Matt Swift, as he had something come up. No Corey Ensko, as he, I guess, like birthday celebration, PTO. I had mine before. He has his after. I don't know, but none of those. But we've got two great friends of the show and guests tonight to fill in to their big shoes. First, we've got good friend Russell Varner. Russell, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm confused since you guys share a birthday. Don't you also sync up your birthday PTO together so you guys celebrate? It's
You
like,
would think so, but Corey's a year older than I am, so he gets to do it a week after me, is what the rule is. So that's what it comes
all
down
right.
to.
I won't argue with the HR because last time I did that, I got in some legal trouble. So whatever works with y'all worked for me.
The Mint City Soccer Show is in some big trouble if I'm the HR department. I'll just say that. So, but Russell, welcome back to the show. And then we have the man, the myth, the legend, Vaughn Pollman. Vaughn, welcome back to the show, sir. How are you?
Hello. Oh my gosh, I gotta get the cobwebs out. I'm all rusty. Although he's rusty, but I'm rusty for not being on here for a while.
Thank you for making the lame joke so I didn't have to.
There we go.
Love it. Love the double entendres. I don't know. Who knows? I love having both you guys on the show, and it's going to be a great show with you guys tonight. So, we are in, I don't want to say rare form this season, but we've got the good vibes going on right now with Charlotte FC. Right? It's I'm glad that I didn't have to do this show back in May with y'all and be like, hey guys, we've lost every game so far. How's it feel? Right? But now I get to come in here and say, guys, we are in one of the best run of forms in the East the past 5 games with Charlotte FC, with 4 wins and a draw. So, and then getting 3 points the other night against Toronto FC. So, I'll kick it off to you guys. Vaughn, first, like, how are you feeling right now as a fan for Charlotte FC? How should fans feel right now?
You're at the top of the roller coaster, so get ready for the drop. I don't know. No, things are going well right now, right? We disappeared until like the good form started coming back, and now the conversations are real easy. No, I think the team was looking for answers, and I think they've started to find them. And I think the team has overcome some, and I'm sure we can talk about it in depth. I think that there were some psyche things that were going on. That's my leading cause of what was happening for the club.
Yep.
And I think they've got those cobwebs clear and are playing well together, connected, but also they're taking advantage of some of the teams that are below them in the standings that they should be beating. Right now, they're winning the games that they should win. And so I think the team is trending in the right way. And these final 9 games, we need to see a continuation of what we've seen these last 5 as the team tries to roll into superior form heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's I don't want to say it's the halfway mark because we are past the halfway mark for MLS season, but I always kind of view Leagues Cup as that, I don't want to say half season lull, but it's kind of like the mark for me of, oh shit, things get real time for the season, right? Like we've got to be in form. We've got to be performing immediately after this 2-3 week window for Leagues Cup this year. Russell, I mean, I'll ask you, rewind yourself 3-4 weeks ago going into July. Things were kind of things were kind of an all-time low a little bit for Charlotte FC fans. Run of form was not great. We were just losing games, drawing games we shouldn't have. Would you have predicted us to be able to get a draw and 4 wins in the month of July, basically?
Yes, like very optimistic me would have. What's funny is the poor run of form was very similar to the first 2 seasons. If I recall correctly, in year 1 under MAR and then year 2 under Latanzio, there was just like a late spring, early summer lull where the team just did not pick up points. And now I don't know if it was at the rate of this year, but there's just something about that time frame that just does not seem to work well for us. Last year being the exception, they were able to play. Last year, ironically, was when they went the huge clean sheet streak and what positioned them well for the end. But what was weird was early in the season, the team, and I think I remember Dean talking about this in pressers, we would win games, but we would not be playing well, he would say. And like if you go back and look at some of the like analytics, like XG and stuff, we would be getting out XG, but we'd be winning games. And then during the majority of the losing streak, we would actually be out XGing the opponent, but we'd be giving up these howlers or goals or these absolute golazos and just dropping games that way. And so you're just waiting for the team to turn around. You're waiting for it to turn around, and just something about the home cooking obviously works for the club, and it does help, like Vaughn said, to be beating teams below you. But there was also a time with this club where it wasn't guaranteed that they would get all 3 points against teams below them. So for them to be able to do that, I think is a very big sign. It it was desperately what not just the team, but the entire fan base needed going forward. Because, like you said, the vibes were off. Everything was just borderline toxic negativity. And so it was really good to see them be able to turn it around, to be able to finish on the high notes that they have.
Yeah, it was pretty rough there for a little while, and not to rehash the bad feelings, but I even kind of shared in our Discord a little bit. Like we were trending behind even Christian Latanzio era of Charlotte FC in terms of points at certain parts of the season, right? And it was getting kind of, I don't say dire straits, but Vaughn, you alluded to it a little bit, like from a mental capacity, or I don't if it was a mental side of things, because I think we all know on paper we've got a pretty good team on paper per se. What do you think was the difference in, say, the month of June versus the month of July, other than a weaker opponents and scheduling? What do you think was different for the club this month versus last?
Well, as I said, I think momentum shifted when I think the team also established some different stability on the back line. And, I noted psyche. Like, to me, the leading cause of what was going on came down to player psyche. And that's both for ourselves and our opponents. I think that the narratives that we were experiencing of, hey, this is a really tough road stretch and the guys are away from home, and Nathan Byrne has this big injury and he's out, and we're having to lean on Nick Scardina and on Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy, who is new to the team, and you had this dip in form, and everybody was looking for where to assign the blame. The same game that we were playing of trying to point the finger. What was happening was, I think the finger was being pointed in every direction, right? I think everybody could look at the attack and say, hey, we've got a sufficient, good enough attack. But even there, there was the conversations over Liel Abada, and is he good enough as a DP, even though he was like leading the team in XG? And then you're subbing in Kerwin Vargas now. And there was this debate going on between Ajumong and Toklomati, and but then really you're looking at all the fingers in the back of, do we have a Westwood problem? Do we have a Bronico problem? Do we have an issue with Privet and his dipping form? What's going on with Kalina? He's not playing like he's goalkeeper of the year. And so I think that those same narratives that was circulating in media, among the fans, I think some of that was going on in the locker room too. And you could hear it even in some of the press conferences. I think it was after the Orlando game where we blew the result and it ended up 2-2. And Kalina was even saying, that I think it was that game. No, it was the NYCFC game. Excuse me. It was the 2-0 win against NYCFC where Kerwin Vargas got the insurance goal. And Kalina was still saying in the press conference, if NYCFC would have been more patient, they would have found the goal and we would have given up the result like we did all the other games. That's your starting goalkeeper in net, former goalkeeper of the year, with a 1-0 lead, and he's not saying, his head is not saying, we've got a 1-0 lead, this game's over. It's done. I'm keeping this at 0, right? So I think that there's been a change in what the internal monologue is for the players. And 2 weeks later, you hear Kalina saying, I feel like I'm back to my old self, right? Like, I had my kid, I've got stuff going on outside of here, I know I've been in bad form. I think all winning cures all, and I think what it's cured in this stretch is, no, the players have believed that they're good enough, but they've also believed late in games that they're not good enough. They get to those late stages and they say, man, if these teams press us and we keep absorbing and we go into rest defense, we can no longer stop them. We're going to give this game away. And so, yeah, you change those little details that make a difference in terms of closing space, losing your runner, picking up a silly foul, making a wayward pass. All of those things were happening because the team's mental state and mental position was just off. And I think that this stretch of getting back home, getting a couple wins under your belt, having some rolls of the ball go in your favor, I think has started to get the team back into the right headspace to be successful. And the narratives have shifted and they've flipped on their heads and we're right back in a positive spot. But dug ourselves into a bit of a hole paired with the East is absolutely ridiculous this year. And so that's why I wanted to highlight Psyche, because I really think that what it really boiled down to at the end of the day, everybody was looking for answers and it just needed some time, some stability, and some wins to iron out the sheets.
Well, I think Dean even mentioned it. I can't remember if it was the Sporting KC match or not, but he was even saying in press conferences, I have center backs that I can't even depend on to not make mistakes anymore. Because, poor passes back, losing men during marking, like whatever it was. So you had Dean making comments like that, Kalina making comments about not being able to weather the storm and finishing games out, et cetera, things like that. So I do think it was a psyche. And while this is a weaker part of our schedule, it was much needed because it helped gain that confidence back, right?
And it sets up the psyche for the opponent, right? It's also the other team says, hey, if we just keep trying, if we keep going, if we push more in the second half, the goals are going to fall for us. They're going to crack, right? And so I think that it's like that double-edged sword when you have a couple of those results. It stemmed from like the start of the whole fall was, I date it back all the way to the New England loss, where we were still unbeaten at home.
Yep.
And we had been the better side for the whole game. I think it was around the 70th minute, and Carles Heel got free of Tim Ream, sent a ball in. It was like a Schross. Like it I think was intended as a cross, ended up being a shot, went past Kalina. Kalina should have been able to get a hand to it. And a game that we did everything right resulted ultimately at the end of the day in a loss and a drop of all 3 points. And I think that started some of that bad juju.
Yeah, no, I 1,000% agree that, like you said, it all stems back to New England. That was the first game that it felt like we absolutely deserved to win, and just a fluke play just cost them, and just everything suddenly started stemming from that as a game where we dropped points that we absolutely not just should have had, needed to have. And that's when we go from top of the East to where we are now. And I think just as important as getting the results as home, was getting that result at Atlanta the way they did. I think it was Willie P, shout out Willie P, who found this stat. That's only the second time in French or in club history that we won a game that we were trailing at halftime. Like that, one is incredible, but two, that's got to do wonders for a team. It did wonders for me. It did wonders for the fan base. I can only imagine what it did for the players. So again, having that mentality and just knowing that you can do that, like you said, Vaughn, that's invaluable. And it seems to be that's what was missing, because nothing else, again, like you said, Vaughn, nothing else made sense. Everyone was pointing fingers and looking for answers, and it wasn't just one specific thing. It was a lot of little things that all led to one giant mistake. There were so many moments that just felt like the Tanzio era all over again, where it was just the team would not be able to play out of the back. The team is getting pressed like crazy. The team is scoring a lot of goals but giving up just as many goals. And it was just the weirdest deja vu, which made no sense because this was basically almost the exact same team that we had 365 days ago. And trying to figure out what the difference was, I don't know.
Well,
So
it's the Kansas City game, right? The Kansas City game was a game that should have been locked down, and at the end of the game, you have a team's number 10 that you don't close space to. You let them throw a Hail Mary. You don't pressure the ball, and then in 1v1s in the box, your center back gets beat 2 times in 3 minutes. I mean, it doesn't matter what
in
effort
stoppage
the rest
time. Yeah,
in stoppage time. Yeah, it doesn't matter what efforts have happened the rest of the game. You could have done an unreal job, and you don't finish your chances. Right? Probably should have been 2 or 3-0 heading into that moment, and instead the whole game gets flipped on its head, and those recurring moments I think were just wearing on everybody. And so I think we've finally gotten over that hump where I think there's still this little seed of doubt. I think we all have that little inkling of like
just a smidge,
right? It's like I said it after the Chicago game, which was I think with a 3-1 loss at home, and my sentiment at the time was it doesn't matter what this team does the rest of the way. I no longer can trust that they're not going to have a performance like this again. We could go on a 8-game win streak, and like there's still that thing that can go wrong for a side. It just highlights the thin margins in this league. What can derail a team is very, very little. LA Galaxy can go from MLS Cup champion to wooden spoon contender off of like one guy being out of the line. You know, like it is just an unbelievable league, and the East right now we're I know I posted about this, but we are actually ahead of last year's point pace after this win against Toronto. Like crazy town that everything that's happened here in the summer, and it's all negated, it's all righted, but we're still in what, 7th?
Well, I pulled this up to kind of see, and just because you were talking about how competitive the East was, we would be tied for 4th with Seattle in the West right now with 38 points.
That's what I
And
wanted to bring up. Yeah.
And I know I mentioned it earlier that like Latanzio era, where we were on pace for Latanzio era, but that was back in like May because like we were just in terrible form and we were just losing games and losing points at home, etc. But we just basically wiped out that May month with our performance in July because we canceled out all those points that were lost. Right now, do I wish we were still 4th, 3rd in the East? But you know, that's neither here or there. I guess that just shows you how competitive the East is. If you look at Supporters Shield standings, like we're 10th right now, and everyone above us is in the East except for San Diego, Vancouver, Minnesota. So 7 out of the 10 teams in the Supporters Shield and top 10 Supporters Shield are from the East right now, which is crazy.
And the teams that we've beaten this year, like you look at it and you're like, hey, are we going to be a contender? Are we going to be able to hang with the big guys? We have marquee wins. We've beaten the team that's 2nd in Supporters Shield, 3rd in Supporters Shield, 4th in Supporters Shield, 7th in Supporters Shield, 11th right now, although on points per game would be ahead of us. We've beaten like 5 teams in the top 10 in points per game in the Supporters Shield. So yeah, we just beat up on all these teams below us in the standings, but we have been able to hold our own in other stretches of the season against those teams at the top. So I think there's going to be, that's why I'm saying these 9 games, like we're qualify for the playoffs, get into the dance. I think everybody can see that the level of this club is good enough to compete if we show up. If we shore up that tiny little bit defensively, we're right back to where we all have felt, where it's like sky's the limit and the ceiling of this team is through the roof.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I needed this pep talk like 45 days ago with Charlotte FC. But we're in a good place. And so I'm gonna pivot a little bit to the Toronto game before we kind of talk about the window and player performance, etc. Um, this past weekend we played Toronto at home, was able to get 3 points. I think we played pretty well against the team that, and I know you said it, Vaughn, like we beat up on these teams in the month of July, but like that's what we're supposed to do. Like as a good team, like you're supposed to kind of beat up on these bottom teams, Atlanta, Toronto, etc. Right? Like you shouldn't, especially at home, you shouldn't drop points against teams like that, right? But Russell, I mean, for one, were you at the game this past weekend?
Apologies. What was that? You were breaking up.
Oh, you're good. What were you at the game this past weekend?
No, unfortunately, I was not
Oh
able to
man.
make it, but it was nice because I do want to give a shout out to I think it was Brian Dunseth, and I don't remember who the play-by-play guy was, but a really cool moment at kickoff that they mentioned. Obviously, every game before kickoff, we do pet pass, and everyone turns around, everyone's doing the pause man. And what was really cool is the announcers took the moment to say how every time that they've come and done a game, they always catch the opposing teams just before kickoff looking around and just taking in everyone and just being like, holy, shit, this is going to be a problem. It was really cool to hear that brought up during the broadcast while I'm trying to put my kid down and trying to just not wake them up.
You mean you're not jumping up and down with them above your head doing Peppas at home?
Sometimes, if I get really desperate, trying to put the 9-month-old down, I've given that a shot before, but that's the last ditch resort, last ditch.
Yeah, the Peppas lullaby.
There you
That's
go.
exactly.
There is a piano or lullaby version of that, by the way, Russell. If you
I
want to
may or
find it
may
on
not have
Spotify.
played that before.
So if you look at that lineup against Toronto, right, and I know Vaughn, I think you were there with Fat Bird in the stands, right? So there's been I know you were talking about, I don't want to say psyche, but it seems like we've gotten some stability at least the past 2 or 3 weeks when it comes to our starting 11, and it's not a defensive line that many probably would have predicted 4 months ago, right? You've got Marshall Ruddy starting at left back. You've got Tim Ream starting at left center back. Adil Simalon, right center back, and Bill Tualuma, who is starting at right back for us and has been starting at right back, 3 games in a row now, give or take a little bit. Do you think that has anything to do with this run of form of getting consistency, experience back there on the field? Because, we've had younger players with the Marshall Ruddy and Nick Scardina essentially being asked to start 90 minutes week in and week out. And, while Marshall Ruddy's had MLS experience previously with his other clubs, Nick Scardina was Crown Legacy, moved up to Charlotte FC, did not have that MLS background starting consistently at this rate. Do you think getting more of, I don't want to say older or more tenured players starting, do you think that has anything to do with our run of form lately?
Oh, it definitely plays a role in it. I mean, you have guys that go in and out of form, and I think especially for young players like the Scardinas, Shaquille Marshall-Ruddy, even Andrew Privet, they haven't experienced those types of high pressure moments when a team's also having to work their way out of those kind of slumps. And so I think you need sometimes to change the personnel a little bit, and you have to find maybe take some of the things that are working and some things that aren't working and measure them up against each other and say, hey, I might need to have a trade-off here, right? And I think the trade-off that Dean has made is, okay, he wanted Liel Abada to stretch the field, but Kerwin Vargas does something different on the defensive side of the ball. And I think then that balance of Kerwin paired with Bill has given some stability to that right side of the pitch. And then on the left side, you're not having Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy have to sometimes be on the right, sometimes be on the left, flip-flopping mid-game. You've had Doumbia that's been in, Doumbia that's been out, Scardina in, Scardina out. It's just been a little bit of this rocky rotation. And we talked about Privet, and he's had to face some adversity. And so I think getting Ream back into the lineup and saying, okay, he's back from the Gold Cup. He showed well at the Gold Cup. Where can we work him back into this squad? Let's give him an opportunity to maybe fill those shoes of Privet and see if something different happens here. Can we shore some things up in the middle? Can we remain compact? Can we be clean on the ball and have fewer giveaways? Dean always talked about having the left-footed guy on that side just for being able to distribute the ball with the right curve for spacing. So I think you've just seen the team have to find some of those minor tweaks, minor adjustments in personnel and guys that are in form and healthy and all of those factors coming to play. And I think right now we've got that right mix. Pep Biel being able to be in that free role, and Toklomati being a totally different kind of striker than Ajiman, being able to drop in. I think Matt Doyle commented on it, how his the receiving position for Toklomati is closer to center than Biel, who actually gets it higher up the pitch. There's little things that are happening that just, it's balanced, and we've had to work to find that balance.
So, Russell, I'm going to ask this because you touched on it a little bit, and I'm going to get both of y'all's perspective. But obviously, that's been a shift defensively, right? But I think also in this run of form, you've had this shift in getting used to a new number 9. Like Patrick Agyemang missed a lot of time in the Gold Cup from our club, per se, right? And you had a player in Toklomati who was very young, still 20 years old, coming in. Did not get many MLS minutes, came from Crown Legacy, it's a pretty big get from that perspective there, right? I think there needed to be some adjustment period, understanding what he does differently, what the players can adjust to, what Pep Biel looks out for, etc. Russell, first for you, like what stood out to you from Toklomati? Because he's already tied Patrick Agyemang's goal contribution in terms of goals scored, this season already at 6. I'll have to double check this stat while you talk, but I'm pretty sure he's at just as many goal contributions with, I think he has 1 or 2 assists at this point as well. But for a guy coming in at 20 years old, I don't want to say very similar to Patrick Agyemang, where he kind of comes in a third of the year into the season, starts taking the starting role, and has started for that perspective. What's your thoughts on Toklomati, and what do you like about him so far at that 9?
The one thing I hate about being on shows with Vaughn is that he takes so many of the points that I want to say before I get to say it. So I
I'm
can't.
sorry.
No, darn you for being so good and using my same sources. Because I also want to quote Matt Doyle. Because if you would read what Matt Doyle, when he would talk about Patrick Agyemang, he would always talk about how Pat he did not have the sense. And he always said that for Pat to make the jump, he needed to get the sense on when to time the runs and when to try to flash in front of goal to try and get those tap-ins. And you can already see that Toklomati has that. He's been able to make these runs that you would not see Pat doing on a regular basis. So he doesn't have the obviously physical profile that Pat does, but he brings this different kind of, I don't want to use the word coach's mentality, but he's got just that mindset and that timing already. We've seen it with definitely the goal against Toronto. I think like almost all of his goals have been that type where it's a pass or a cross into the middle and he's able to time his run and tap it in. That's where he's had a lot of success, and that's what I've been really impressed with. Because again, like you said, David, he's 20 years old. I completely forgot that he's only 20, and he is putting up these crazy numbers. He's at the point, he's playing well enough to now where I don't necessarily think, to kind of spoil something you might be asking later on, I don't think we need a DP9 if we can just find someone who can complement what Toklomati does. Because he's been playing well enough, and I think he blends in very well to what the team's trying to do now. So you don't just have to try crosses into pads. Now you're able to go either a cross or a low driven ball and have Toklomati get there and get on the end of it. It's been really impressive and really incredible to watch.
So Vaughn, same question to you. I mean, what stood out to him for you as well? Because I do think what Russell was saying, like just some of the runs, the vision. I mean, I think he's also surprised some folks with some of his like passing ability, hold up play at different times as well. what stood out to you about Toklomati already, and like I guess like how high is high? Because I don't want to hype up a guy too much, but this guy's 20 years old, right? What do you think is the potential here for this kind of a player?
I mean, I was banging the drum on the podcast before Soccer and Coffee. I've been saying for a long time that I wanted Toklomati starting and I wanted Pat off the bench. And it stemmed from their style of play. Like Toklomati is a true number 9. He moves like he is a mobile guy. He's all over the pitch. He can go wide. He can stay inside. He can make the runs in behind. He can drop in. He can have hold up play. I think he's really good aerially. Like his goal this week from Brant Bronico. He knows how to find space. And he's not trying to. He doesn't have some of the issues that happen with other strikers where they're looking for a shot from really far away from goal, or having to get into large pockets of space. Like Ajimong was able to use his physicality to open up big pockets of space, and he's getting into one-on-one situations. Toklomati doesn't need a one-on-one situation to get that golden opportunity. He just needs to find a little bit of room in the box with his movement to just redirect it on frame. He's not looking to hammer it home. He's not looking to hit a thunderbolt. It's just get into the box, get a touch, get it around the keeper, over the keeper. And we talk about, he's even with Ajimong. Well, Ajimong also had a PK. Like, if you look at goals from the run of play, Toklomati's already passed him. And so I think it's that the goals come in different ways. They come in different types of threats, but also in high danger areas. His XG, talking again about Doyle commented how he's an XG machine. In a very, very short time, he has crept up upon and surpassed Liel Abada in leading the team in XG. And it's just because he puts himself into dangerous areas multiple times in a game. He creates space for others. I think that's the other thing, is his movement is stretching the defense, but also creating opportunities for other guys in our attack. And so, yeah, he gels. It works. It's a good system. And yes, I'm sure we'll talk about the DP conversation here shortly. But Toklomati, what does he bring? It's all of those intangibles. It's all of those little things he does well as a totally different style. Number 9 that works really well in Dean's system. That is all about movement.
Yeah, I was pulling up some stats here. So he's 7.7 expected goals, right? And that's run a play as well. So like that's non-penalty expected goals, which is way up there. He is in the 98th percentile, Vaughn, for non-penalty expected goals per 90 minutes. He is the 97th percentile for non-penalty expected goals and expected assists. So essentially, goal contributions. 96th percentile in pass completions. I mean, it's really impressive for a guy that's coming in, one that no one knew. Like no one knew who Toklomati was. If you rewind this back 16 months ago, fan wise, roster wise, like no one knew who he was, right? Like it come in, pretty big transfer fee that was paid to go to Crown Legacy in terms of that kind of thought process. So people have kind of speculated like, wow, they rate this player very high, right? And Charlotte's got a history that the announcers in this last game were talking about the way that Charlotte has identified talent and scouting and bring players up and find some hidden gems, et cetera, those kind of things like that. But I think, I mean, and I don't want to put you guys on the spot here, and I don't want to hype Toklomati up too much here, but is it fair to say, fast forward 2 or 3 years down the road, that you have a player in Toklomati that could get a higher transfer fee than Patrick Ajimang could right now?
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
If I could get off mute, then yeah, I would say that I agree, because Patrick was a lot of raw potential, but Toklomati is already, I think, a more polished striker than Najimon is. And again, he's how much younger? So
And
I
he's
would not,
European. I mean,
yeah, and there's that. For better or for worse, he has that going for him. Like, I would not be shocked at all if he's the one who sets a new transfer record for the club.
It throws me off.
And Ajimong had
go
no
ahead, Vaughn.
business being an $8 to $10 million
No,
transfer either.
absolutely not.
I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that. Well, and
Yeah,
I'll jump ahead here in a minute, but
I'm happy as hell for him, but
I think we fleeced Darby a little bit there. Huh?
Zoran has some magic. I don't know how he sold him on that, but I'm not complaining. I'm happy as hell for Pat. He deserves to be paid. I I'm glad we did not pay him that much, and I will leave it at that.
So we'll save some of that for the transfer talk here in just a minute or two. But I mean, so if you're looking at, and I'll not to skip it back a little bit, but if you look at Charlotte's performance against Toronto, I mean, for both of you guys, Pep Biel continues to be a pretty good player. One player I want to talk through, and Russell, I'll start with you just a little bit because I know we were talking a little bit in Discord about it. But the emergence of Wilfred Zaha, and I know it sounds weird to kind of say the emergence of Wilfred Zaha, but I guess the emergence in MLS, and see Spencer in the background's barking because he's that excited about Wilfred Zaha. But 8 goal contribution, or a goal contribution in the past 8 games. So either a goal or an assist, making an impact. There's also the quote unquote hockey assist where he's assisting the assist or helping build up play that's not even being accounted for in that statistic, right? Russell, how are you feeling right now with Wilfred Zaha coming in his own here with MLS and Charlotte FC?
I think I said it in the Discord. I think I said it on Twitter. I want to say it all over social media. I very much remember a time when everyone said it. This was just another terrible Charlotte FC DP signing, and that Zaha was a bust. And just what is Charlotte doing? And you know it's the old frog tea emoji or meme that's all it is. It's just sitting back. It's enjoying that because it is great to see him not just do it with goals like that. The pass that he had on Kerwin's goal was just absolute chef's kiss. It was beautiful in every sense of the word. And what's funny is I do think that actually the in the goal contribution in 8 straight games, MLS does include the secondary assist, the hockey assist.
The hockey assist, got it.
Yeah, which honestly I'm fine with. Like it, as long as it's not used every time, and it's not, I think it's a very good stat. And MLS could do a better job of differentiating it. But and even if they don't include it, that's Zaha, or those will know that Zaha has had a great number of those passes, and that if nothing else, he is still grabbing the attention. And now we have other guys who are taking advantage of it. See BL, see Kerwin, see Abada, see Toklomati, and that's one of the big reasons the offense is thriving right now.
What about you, Vaughn? What's your thoughts on Zaha right now?
I think Zaha has the right mentality. I think he's finding how he can be most impactful within this system. I think he has, been able to work up his fitness because that was the real challenge that he was facing. Coming here, following his past 2 stints, was he hasn't been able to have stability in his own play. And so I think right now what we're getting is the best of Zaha. I think the people that thought he was going to be a bust in the league were wrong. I think the people that thought he was going to be MVP level and just tear the league apart were wrong. I think that this version of Zaha, where he is finding how to separate from his defender, how he's being able to read the field with a little bit different vision than anybody else, that he's able to know his moments to get inside as opposed to stay out wide, and being able to create, whether it's space or find that pass for others, is what I think Zaha was always going to need to become for us. If it was just him being, hey, I need you to score every single week, I don't think it would have been fair for what his skill set is. And so I think right now he has all of the right, he's saying the right things, he's leading in the right way. I think the people talking about his attitude and how he riles people up, I think it's all overblown. I think it's malarkey. Let Zaha express himself. And right now, the way he's expressing himself is through his play. And we're reaping the benefits of that. And, MLS stats, however they count them, I think he's 1 goal contribution off of what was Karol Swiderski's for previous team record when he had 12 goals and I think 5 assists. I think it was 17 goal contribution. It was something like 12 and 4, 12 and 5, and now you've got Zaha at 6 goals, 9 assists. He's right where he needs to be to find a way to contribute to the score sheet week in and week out, and every single game you're doing something that leads to a key moment, and he's doing that, and BL is doing that, and now Toklomati's doing it. So offense, we have a championship caliber offense, period. Just full stop. I think we need 3 more goals to tie our franchise record for goals in a season. Like we're going to shatter that. We're doing everything right on that side of the ball. And I think also the thing we've seen from Zaha, speaking of Zaha, is he's been a willing defender. He is talking the talk. He's playing both sides of the ball. He's being that leader, not only vocally, but also through his actions, and his performance and his play. So Zaha, no notes right now. Be yourself. Keep contributing the way you're contributing, and we'll be in a good spot come playoff time.
Well, and that's what I'm happy about. And I think what a lot of the expectation for Zaha earlier this season was people see that DP tag and they just go, oh, that means they got to score goals, right? And for me as a winger in this league, especially with the way that our front 4 was built, we didn't need Zaha. And I know Swift said this in the past. We don't need Zaha to be our leading goal scorer. Like that's not our system. Even though I will say, first few games, it felt like we were force feeding Zaha a little bit. Like I think the Miami game and a few games where we were basically like, just give the ball to Zaha and see what can happen of it. But I think we've learned players got to gel. They've got to communicate. They got to get used to each other. Systems got to shift, right? And I think you've seen that happen now. And you just touched on it. Like I put out this tweet kind of poo-pooing on Atlanta's build a little bit. But if you look at the way that our goals being contributed, you've got Pep Biel got 10 goals, Zaha 6, Ajumain had 6, Toklomati has 6, Abada has 5, Vargas has 4. That's all of our starting 4 or 5 players, right? And you just touched on it. Like we're going to crush the scoring record for our franchise this year. And I guess that's I don't want to say the disappointing or the frustrating thing with the way May and June happened for us is that we've known that goal scoring and attack has not been the issue. It's been our defense and closing out games for the most part. And that's where if we could have just closed out some of these games, like we would be on pace for a very, very special season. I still think we can have a special season, but we would just be on pace for one very much sooner than later from that perspective.
Yeah, we'd be flirting with supporter shield.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the disappointing and sad part, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll make up for that. Go ahead, Russell.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's one of those I'm trying not to dwell on the past and think of that. But just because, I mean, when we're in the midst of the losing streak, then yeah, you absolutely sit there and you think what could have been, and you think what happened to this defense. But now that we're winning games, it's just like, all right, we kind of dropped some points, but look where we still are. We still have a puncher's chance. And even if worse comes to worse and we only get in as a 7 seed, I guarantee no one's going to want to play us. Not with that front 4. And if we can just figure out on defense if Kalina can return not even to where he was last year, but just back to even an average keeper. Because during that stretch, like he was like I was looking at, I think, the goals prevented stat at some point during the losing streak, and he was like bottom 2 or 3 in that statistic. And if we could just get him back to the league average in that, then again, I'm not going to go so far as to say the sky's the limit, but we'd be in a good position for a run in the playoffs if we can just have just even average Kalina back to go with that offense.
Sky's the limit.
I was going to say, you can say it, Russell. It's all good.
I'm trying so hard not to get. I'm trying.
Hyped up again? Yeah.
I'm trying this new like realistic optimist. Like, yeah, I think we'll be good, but like, I'm not. I do think that we could take like on any given day, as Vaughn said earlier, we've proven that we can hang with the Columbuses, the Orlandos, the top teams in the league. And not that we'd be favorites, but I don't think it'd be a complete shock to see us pull out victories against them.
No, I mean, Russell, you were in statistics. You know these past 5 games, we've given up 1 goal, 5 goals in 5 games. That's 1 goal against per game, and
Yeah.
we've now gone. I think like I need to pull up my stats, but we're averaging well over 2 goals per game. If you average to score 2 goals per game and you concede 1 goal per game, you're gonna win more often than not. Like, it's
Vaughn, I
pretty
don't think you need to
straightforward
be a
math.
statistics person to figure that one out.
No,
John
Two
Madden.
bigger than one.
but when I say sky's the limit, I mean that's really what we're talking about here. Is can this team come playoff time 9 games from now, when Nathan Byrne is back in the mix and we're potentially adding to the back line at left back, and the team has this confidence, and Kalina is playing closer to what he did the first 9 games of the year as opposed to the middle 9 games of the year, and that mental space is in the right spot, and we're consistently, if over these next 9 games we continue on that score 2 give up 1 kind of pace, we're going to literally be able to feel confident that we can go up against anybody on any given day and we can play them off the pitch offensively. And if we feel confident in our stability in the back line, it's going to be there. We can hang and can beat anyone. And that's not just like, oh, I'm getting hype and whatever. No, that's as simple as it is for this club. If they get the cobwebs out of their psyche and shore up that tiny little bit defensively with the personnel that they had last year, we're 1 year removed from what that was, you know? But part of that was also, statistically, we were also playing with fire. And the beginning of this year, we were playing with fire. Kalina was still taking on a lot of shots. He was leading the league in saves, and it was by volume. What we had to do is we had to scale back the volume, give him less to have to deal with. And yeah, when you have games that go where he's only having to get 3 or 4 saves, and he's feeling confident in those 3 or 4 saves, that's what we just need to do consistently.
I'm about to Kool-Aid man this, y'all, after talking with you two the past 5 minutes. I'm about to Kool-Aid man through the wall, scream, "Oh yeah," and be ready to rock and roll after July. So let's transition to some summer talk and transfer talk a little bit, and I guess future state of this team. So unless you lived under a rock, you know that the summer transfer window started last week. I think last Thursday, give or take, or Tuesday, one of the two. This year it shifted a little bit, so I think it started a little bit later for MLS, and it's extended through I think August 21st or something like that. So it's a little bit later now. I know Zoran came on our show last year and kind of shared like he wished he had like 1 more or 2 more weeks to kind of help close some deals, but he got his wish this year a little bit. But looking at we'll talk about linked rumors and things like that, but you know, before we dive into that, where would you, if you were Zoran right now, who's probably in London, wheeling and dealing, meeting agents, whatever it is, right? Where would you focus, and what would be your wish list? It doesn't have to be players, but maybe like a position. What would you do? So if anyone wants to go first here and take the lead on this, where would you kind of focus and take the lead? Let's go with you, Russell. You were about to come off mute there, so go ahead.
So I think left back, figure out what we're doing there. That's the biggest thing. Next would be uh, figuring out what we want to do at 9, whether it's get that DP 9 or get a compliment with Toklomati. And then third would be get some more midfield depth. Because Westwood is going to need a break sooner or later. He's going to get one next game back from Leagues Cup, only due to yellow card accumulation. But Westwood's about as old as I am. And I love that he keeps making me feel young with how much he runs and how he keeps doing what he's doing. But it's not a viable long-term strategy. I feel bad saying that. I'm sorry, Ashley. You're still my favorite player, but I would love to see the team even just ease up on his minutes some to try and see if they can extend his career that way and not make it. It's cool when you hear how he's played like in top 5 in the league in minutes played and like top 10 or top 5 in um, yards covered. It's great hearing that, but at the same time, he is what 35, 36, and human bodies are. I don't think you ever meant to do that unless you go like the Barry Bonds route and allegedly, I feel I have to say, find something to help you out. And so I'd love to see. This is a very, very, very long-winded way of saying get some depth in the midfield. Sorry, went a bit of a tangent there. My bad.
You're good, man. You're good. So what you're telling me is you need Ashley Westwood to be juicing up, is what you're telling me. So is that what you're telling?
Either that or figure out a way to clone him and then start juicing him up so then we can get a juiced young Ashley Westwood and then we could sell him for big money and then keep cloning him.
He has a son. We can talk about Academy. I'm just kidding. So Vaughn. So Russell says left back. Figure out what you want to do with a 9 and maybe some midfield depth a little bit. What about you? Anything different? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think right now you're looking at a left back starter. I think is what we're trying to accomplish. I think you need a number 9 backup. You need somebody that maybe can even be a specialist. I wish Kai Kamara was available on the market right now. He would be a perfect super sub sort of situation.
You speak to my heart with that one.
Yeah, that would be nice right now. But somebody that can be that kind of late game, maybe a physical threat, do some change of pace to what Toklomati brings to the table. But somebody that can get through a 90-minute if something were to happen to Toklomati. But I think the thing that would unlock this team right now, and I've said it for a while, it's specifically the number 8. I think right now that 6-8 hybrid, I think we're still trying to find the right mix for between Bronico, Williamson, Gianni, and at this point, Westwood's not being replaced, right? Like Westwood is going to play darn near every minute for this club this year. And I don't think anything's going to happen at that 6 spot. But whoever he's paired with, whoever that partner is, I think that if you went out and said, hey, we've got this extra DP spot, or okay, let's imagine you moved on Petkovic and you could go for a swing for the fences U22, that might be a future DP. That is what I think takes this team from here to like set up for a long time. Just because it's just somebody that brings a different flavor than what those other 3 guys bring. I don't know that that's going to be in the cards this window. That might be this off season. But my wish list, what I would love to see is the move at that point. And where you may have some flexibility on that too is if Abada is not going to be a starter as a DP, that may be your future move too.
So, and I guess my question to both of you would be is that if you do bring in a midfield depth, which, I think everyone's kind of making comments on, you made moves this offseason. If you were Zoran, Bobby Belair front office, you brought on a player like an Eric Williamson who has made Gold Cup appearances, who was rated pretty highly at his time in Portland, right? While granted we got him for I think $100,000 from a transfer fee perspective, is pretty high on our salary spend as a TAM level player. You kind of bring a player like that in to be either depth or be a starter, and it just doesn't seem like it's synced this year yet from that perspective, right?
Well, I think this is the thing that we're going to have to keep an eye on here through Leagues Cup and post Leagues Cup is remember what Dean did last year that changed for the team down the stretch. Bronico and Junior Urso, when Junior Urso came back from injury, they were given the freedom to get forward as a paired 8. And at that time, we were playing BL wide, right? Eric Williamson's game, and Dean was commenting on this in the presser this past week as well, is a more, they brought him in to be a more attacking piece. He's good both ways, but like His real strength is to be a little bit more attacking. But Dean's system this year is to have a defensive pivot with somebody beside Westwood. So I'm curious to see during Leagues Cup and post Leagues Cup if we do any wrinkles to our attack, whether either of those guys, I think both Williamson and Bronico could be given the freedom to get advanced and to do some different things and to be a different curveball to what we've been showing the rest of this year. And I'm curious to see if we're going to see that. And that's where that is the caveat to what I was saying. If I want a depth piece or I want a starter, a higher level guy, it could just be how we are using those guys in midfield.
Well, and I guess, I'm sorry, Russell, I'm going to cut you off because I know you're about to come in here and ask a question or comment too. But I guess my question to build off of that is that what do you do? Because I guess in this transfer window, it's middle of our season, but a lot of European teams, overseas teams, this is their preseason, starting to ramp up, kind of move into that space. If you are going to bring on some more depth or even another midfield piece, I think you also have to offload some players potentially, right? You've got a player like Petrovic who is taking up a U22, initiative space that's not getting much minutes. You've got, Jabril Diani, you've got Eric Williamson, you've got Brant Bronico, et cetera. Like what would you do from a roster space then to kind of free up a space for someone to come in?
I think we've already done some of it. I mean, you've moved João Pedro off the books. You've moved Yuri Tavares off the books.
That's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Doumbia, in theory, his loan could be, and if he's injured, his loan could come to an end. Or like you said, you go ahead and move a Petkovic. You do something. You loan a guy out. Like you can make the move if you need to make the move. And Ajimong's been sold. Like the roster spots are there. The international spots are available. I think we've got that flexibility. It's more a matter of if we're trying to sign a DP, do we actually have enough GAM on the books to be able to, or do we want to spend the GAM in this window to be able to ultimately make that change? And also, I don't know if we've crossed a deadline to be able to actually declare that or not. So I think right now the team has a couple of options and that's the good thing is we're not locked. We're not in a situation where we can't make those moves. I think it's very clear right now the priorities are going to be outside back because we know that the team's got people that are in town for the left back spot, and you ultimately also have depth for Toklomati because you sold Ajimong. You need to have somebody else up there. It's not going to be Tiger Smalls. You could throw Zaha there, but we haven't seen him in that spot. I think that's where naturally thinking you need to have some depth established. Midfield, it's a want. It's me saying what I think would elevate the club, what would take it to that next level. But like you said, there's a logjam there. We've got more than enough bodies between Westwood and Bronico and Petkovic and Gianni and Williamson, and like it's not where we need to do anything.
So go ahead, Russell. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to make a smart ass comment about this, as I was talking about earlier about being on a show with Vaughn, is that he says all the things I want to say. And then when it comes my turn to say something, I got absolutely nothing to add because, again, he says what I'm thinking, but better most of the time.
No.
So,
no, you guys both bring good value there, Russell. Don't worry about that. So Russell,
teamwork.
I'll
it's teamwork.
Yeah,
that's what we'll call it.
So Russell, and not talking about, I guess the rumored players, because there is some stuff. If you Google search online, there's a few folks here that's been linked as a 9 position for Charlotte FC. What would you do in this situation for a 9? Like, would you want to continue to say Toklomati's the guy and bring in more of a senior experienced guy, older guy kind of coming in to kind of be that backup sub or super sub for Charlotte? Or would you want them to spend the DP money that they got from Patrick Agyemang to be able to get another 9 in here? What's your thoughts, Russell, from that perspective?
Right now, it's probably recency bias. I would say stick with Toklomati and get a veteran or someone to pair with him because he is in such great form. It only makes sense to continue to try to ride him. The question then obviously becomes, can he keep it up? Is this just a small sample size thing? Is he going to fall down to earth. The idea of a DP9, a Jamie Vardy, Yakamakis from Cruz Azul, I believe it is in Mexico. Those guys, that would be salivating. But if you're able to have a 1-2 punch with Toklomati and someone else not named Tiger Smalls, again, nothing against Tiger, but I do not trust him as my backup nine, and would almost rather see. I'm not going to say just about anyone else, but basically anyone else. Tiger is great on the wing. I'm not sure why we keep trying him at nine, but Dean has forgotten more about soccer than I will ever know, so I'm not going to question that part. But at this moment in time, right now, I will say stick with Toklomati as your starter and find someone to pair him with and have either come off the bench or be able to spot start for him if needed.
What about you, Vaughn?
Yeah, to me, you got to let Toklomati be the starter and give him those minutes. And I don't think you need a DP. Like Russell was noting, Yakumakis would be a luxury to have for even 3 months. You know what I mean? Like somebody that can come in and can be that dynamic, good with their head, find a goal every game kind of guy. But I didn't love, specifically with Yakumakis, I wasn't loving what he was saying when he left MLS, talking about competitiveness, and when he left Atlanta, where his head was at in terms of MLS teams and their motivations. I think he went to Liga MX for the wrong reasons, in my opinion. And why does he go to Celtic and then Atlanta and now Cruz Azul and now moving again when he's a goal scorer? Like he's scoring in all of these places. I think there's something else there. So would I be mad if he was here? No, as I said, it'd be a luxury signing. I think he'd be good. Do I think that is what we need? No. And I will also give my counter argument to what I was talking about in the midfield and saying, hey, I'm curious to see if we change some things up, where if Williamson and Bronico end up being that kind of attacking piece. In the back of my head, I'm also like, this year the team doesn't need what Bronico and Urso provided down that stretch, which was late runners into the box, getting guys that are that threat at the top of the box and late runs into the box. Once again, our attack is fine, right? It's the defensive side of the ball, so it's just more having that other club in the bag. And so yeah, for Toklomati, it's the same thing. We just need to have another club in the bag. We need insurance if he goes down, so that we aren't stuck with ultimately a Tiger Smalls having to have the responsibility to score every single game, because he's not that, and having somebody that can be that game changer and can be that special weapon for us in key moments and when it's down the stretch and in clutch time. That's ultimately what we're talking about. What would be a nice luxury for the team to add here in this window.
So, Vaughn, I do have to pick your Vaughn-stronomous brain here for a second and just explain a roster rule for some folks, or salary rule from your experience here. But can you explain the Patrick Agyemang sell a little bit for some fans, selfishly for myself? So, Charlotte FC sells a player for $6, $7, $8 million, which I think I'll say it again. I think we kind of fleeced Derby a little bit there from that perspective. No, nothing against Patrick. I hope he does really well there. But does Charlotte get that full transfer? What goes to the league? What goes to the club? And what can the team do differently now with that sell? Because, obviously teams have a balance and they have to have a checkbook and they don't want to overspend and then be in the negative too much and everything like that. But what benefit does it do to be able to sell players for X amount of money? And what does that do for future roster construction as well?
So on the sale of players, MLS teams are allowed to convert $3 million of the profit of those sales to general allocation money, or GAM, which is I think most people that are listening here probably know what that is by this point, but it's basically funds that allow you to expand your salary cap. They're funds above and beyond the salary cap that can be used to buy down somebody's salary charge, to go towards buying down their transfer fee, and how it hits the books. Subsidized funds, essentially. And so with our other sales, right, like we sold Swiderski, we had other sales that occurred. I don't know whether or not we converted other dollars to GAM ahead of this this Ajamong sale for this calendar year. The team, though, Tepper, like, that is profit. It's because we drafted him, because he was just a standard super draft pick. Those dollars can be pocketed, but ultimately they get reinvested into the club in the form of transfer fees, could be into, infrastructure, building out the academy, building facilities, hiring other staff, whatever. It's not like the rules used to require that, or it had to ultimately go back into infrastructure. That's no longer the case. It could be pocketed, but I don't think it will be. What could become interesting is, I do believe some of those future, where he was sold for $8 million, could become up to $10 million. When those funds come to the club in the future, then in the future, those dollars could, in theory, go towards GAM at an indeterminate future date. So it's one that we can reap the benefits of this over several windows. And the league has also changed the rules where once you convert those dollars to GAM, it's non-expiring. Used to expire. You used to have to use it within 3 windows. But now the rule, as far as I understand it, is that it's non-expiring, and you can just create a war chest of GAM and wait for your moment.
So it's why teams like Atlanta go crazy and spend $21 million, whatever it is, on a player like Latte Lath, and be able to get Miguel Almiron, because they've be able to kind of get, now granted those are all DP players, but they're able to spend that and then spend extra money on other players throughout the roster build, right?
It's a much bigger question. Atlanta, the model for Atlanta, and frankly the model for us, is that we play in NFL stadiums that we're also selling out, or that our capacity is increased, where we are averaging 30,000+ when other stadiums only have a max capacity of 17,000, right? So when we're getting ticket sales, when we're getting concession sales, when we're getting merch sales on 30,000 people per game, when the Kansas Cities of the league are only able to max out at 17 or 18,000, we have significantly more revenue dollars coming in those revenue streams that allow for higher spend on transfer fees. You have more dollars that you can justify. And when you sign those bigger players, when you sign an Almada, when you sign, Latte Lots, your merch sales also go through the roof for those people, right? And so when you have a hungry market, that's where those dollars come. It has nothing to do. I mean, you got some teams that they want to develop players and sell them on, and I think that's some of what we're doing. Like Ajimong, to me, is you invested in your scouting, you identified the talent early, and you knew the right moment to move on from them. Malanda is going to be the same thing. We're going to make profit on the sale of Malanda, no different than we made profit on the sale of Riley McGree. No different than we're, have had other deals that we've come out on the plus side of, that then you can eat some of your losses. You can lose a few million on a Copetti, on a Yuzviak, on a Diagra, on, some of these guys, because at the end of the day, the overall spend, Tepper says, well, I've got $17 billion. I can lose $20 million on my transfer budget, knowing that I'm going to be able to recoup half of that on one positive sale in the infrastructure I'm building for my scouting or my player development down the road. The hope is in the future, it's a Nimfasha Berchimas or a Brian Romero, that your investment is in their development at the academy level, and then they end up being a $5 million pure profit, essentially, sale down the road.
Got it. No, I appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure folks understood the impact of a sale like that, and then obviously the sell on clause and all that fun jazz for it too. So, all right, so I've got a few Q&A questions here because I know we've got some other stuff planned too in the background here in a bit. But I've got a few questions here for you guys. So you touched on Melanda a little bit here. So Matt Nolan asked in our Discord, it seems like Melanda wants out, but the team doesn't like the price potentially yet. Is finding a backfill for him part of the dynamic that enables that? And should the team be willing, as a disenchantment can impact performance over time? Open it up to you, either one of you guys.
I can run with it, but do you want it, Russ?
I'm also in the same position. I don't think it is a prerequisite for selling him, but it definitely wouldn't hurt. I I don't think, based on everything we've seen from the team, that they're going to sell him this window. And even if they were, I think they would be dumb to not have a replacement lined up for him. Considering the backup options are aging Tim Ream, uh, inconsistent, we will say, Andrew Privet, and Bill Tuiloma. We've seen it with other leagues or other teams around the world. You might remember the Tim Ream deal. That was kind of considered in limbo for like 2, 3 weeks because Fulham would not get rid of Ream until they signed his replacement. So it could be Charlotte's playing with a bit of fire, but also at the same time, the last 2 or 3 games, Malanda has looked like his old self. Was it against New York City that he had the clearance off the line when Kalina was beat? Against Toronto last week, there were what 3, 4, 5 different long balls that Malanda single-handedly killed a counterattack on his own. So it seems that hopefully, knock on wood, he's over or is in a better headspace at least than he was before. I expect him to be gone this winter. I base that on absolutely nothing other than just my gut feeling. But again, if he was to go this winter, Zoran would not be doing his due diligence. He would not be doing his job if he was not at least scouting potential backups, which could be a reason why they want to hold on to him for a little longer. Other than, competing in Leagues Cup and making a run at the playoffs and all of that.
What's your thoughts, Vaughn?
Yeah, it's a balance. And yes, you're trying to act in the player's best interests, right? Malanda in recent interviews has made it very clear that his future's in Europe. He knows that. Zoran knows that.
And
everybody knows that.
Yeah, I'd be very worried if he didn't want that. I would be
Right.
very scared if someone like him was content to stay here and not try to better himself to go back to Europe.
Right, but the difference for him right now, as opposed to when we sold Ajimong, is mortgaging your present. For your present success is being mortgaged if you sell Malanda now. For Ajimong, we had Toklomati in the wings. The coach, the team, everybody understood like Toklomati can step in and we feel he can do this. And I think even us fans, we were watching Ajimong, we were like, Ajimong's having a little bit of a, now that he's the every game starter, he's not infallible. Like there are holes in his game. He has things to develop. But we also knew with Ajimong, we had him under team control, but it was on a team friendly deal. And it was a contract that was sellable, and he's at that right age, and all of those factors were at play. So for Malanda, I think it's, and you noted, it takes multiple parties to come together. It takes the player himself, it takes the player's agent, it takes the sporting director and the team that has the player under control, and it has the team that is taking that person on as well. Right? He could go to PSV Eindhoven, but does that guarantee that he's going to have minutes? Like, what's the situation there that he's going to step in and immediately be a starter there? He might be going for a certain coach. He might be going for a certain system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Tons of factors at play. In Malanda's case, I think it's a matter of the team is not going to mortgage their opportunities here and now. If we were still below the playoff line, maybe that conversation changes.
Doesn't help that our former technical director is at PSV as well and helped scout Molanda. You know what I mean? But it's
Pure coincidence. Nothing more than that, I'm sure.
No, of course. Just a little quinky.
Thomas, if you're watching this, scale it back. Turn
buddy.
off everything you just saw. And high.
Yeah. High.
Yeah, there you
go. Slow your roll. Stop it, please.
So thanks for answering that question for Matt. Chris asked this question, and it kind of segues a little bit to the rest of this week. But do you go full bore for Leagues Cup and try to bring the hardware, or do you try to play it safe, get some experimentation, and but then you run the risk of losing the streak we got going on right now? So Vaughn, I'll start with you first. What would you do in this situation? Because we're out of Open Cup, nothing happening from that perspective. What would you do with Leagues Cup coming up here soon?
Compete. Try to continue your form. Try to get some minutes for some guys that maybe haven't been getting minutes. Specifically, work up his fitness. I would like to see him work his way in, and the goal is be competitive, show well against these teams, give the fans something to remain excited about, and do not get hurt. Do not mortgage your playoff ambitions and your championship ambitions. I think anybody here, would we love a Leagues Cup win? Sure. Am I going to be pumped if we win Leagues Cup and get bounced from the playoffs? Personally, I put more weight on the playoffs, and I would like for us to have a deeper run in the playoffs. But always go for if you're in the tournament, it's a competitive space, go try to be competitive. And yeah, I'd like for us to, show that we can hang with the Monterreys of the world.
Yeah. It's a very fine line to balance. That's something that Dino and the guys, they're all going to talk and figure it out. But I'm in complete lockstep with you, Vaughn. Don't jeopardize playoffs. Try to ease people in. Maybe try some new alignments, some new systems if you want. Try to see if you can get, as we mentioned earlier, a different club to try and play with if needed later on come playoff time. Like take 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 it seriously, but not too seriously, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It don't again. This all goes back to I'm trying to say what Vaughn said, but I can't say it as good as he does. Do not mortgage the playoffs this year. If you find yourself in a position to go for it, then absolutely go for it. But otherwise, don't 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 risk it all.
I agree. I don't want a Miami Messi situation where we win Leagues Cup and then bounce in the first round against a, Atlanta United situation. So, but it's neither here or there. But so last question before we transition to the secret show. So this question is from Philip. So and Matt Swift's going to talk about this, I'm sure, in the future because I know he's missed out on this one. So Philip, I had to make sure I asked this though. So he says, my wife asked me this on Saturday and I didn't have a complete answer. Why do we have so many players on loan versus signing them? This started with the discussion about Doumbia, Marshall Ruddy coming back. And I said, it depends because they're both on loan. She asked who else is on loan. And I told her about Zaha and his potential loan extension through June and the loan extension we have for Pep BL. Is this a club strategy to avoid transfer fees and maintain a level of flexibility for future GAM and TAM signings? Or is there some other reason from your perspectives? Russell, I'll have you go first this time.
Yes. Like long story short, yes to all of that. There are multiple clubs that you'll see throughout Europe that will take advantage and have a lot of loan players on their roster, or will send out a bunch of people on loan. Cough, cough, Chelsea, cough, cough. But this is Zoran kind of finding a way to get around some loopholes, like what we're seeing Inter Miami do with our Rodrigo de Paul, who is basically going to be a fourth DP, but because they're bringing him in on loan, they are not going to have him on a DP contract, and they're going to wait until January when presumably Sergio Busquets will have his contract either redone or ripped apart, and he will no longer be a DP, and Rodrigo De Paul will then become a DP instead. So I see it just as a way to keep the flexibility, to kind of put the team in a position to do whatever they want. And like in the position or the situation with Dumbia and JMR, it was a situation where we just needed a quick fix. It's kind of an awkward position to try and sign guys because, again, the MLS offseason takes place during the when every other league in the world is playing. So you're trying to bring in these guys midway through their seasons, and their clubs might not be willing to give rid of them full time. So it might just be easier to bring some of them in on a loan. So I think like in those two situations, that's why you see that. In a situation like with Zaha, I think it was just a low risk, high reward. You bring Zaha in. If it works, that's great. We extend him and maybe buy him full time. If it doesn't work, oh well, we'll live. And we've seen the same thing with Pep Biel. Again, like I think that's just the way that that's how he works, at least when it comes to the international signings. And I personally don't have an issue with it, at least not yet. He hasn't given me a reason to.
What's your thoughts, Vaughn?
Yeah, I don't think it's the same answer for every single situation. I think it's a mix of things. Sometimes it's to mitigate the risk for the teams involved as well as the player. Right, like Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy. It's a quick deal. It's to make it something where you can have the player come in and they can maybe have some success. If they're having a ton of success, they can get recalled. If they get injured, you can call the deal off. You maintain, to Russell's point, the flexibility in terms of being able to move people on and off of the books as needed for both current build and future build. But yeah, in the case of Pep Biel and Zaha, I think it's actually a negotiation tactic. I think it's a way that Zoran, to the point of Russell, of trying to not skirt, but play within the rules and regulations of MLS roster building, and be a little bit sly in the math of how you can balance your books in a different way. Pep Biel being on a whole bunch of 6-month loans, his loan fee can get separated. Instead of one transfer fee that gets amortized over the whole deal, right? He can come in and on, let's imagine he's on loan number 3, and then there's a future transfer fee. That fee has been separated 4 times in a shorter window. So it's a way that they can ultimately get more dollars to the team, that's getting those funds that's loaning him, than an outright transfer fee. But you have to find a willing partner in that. You have to find a team that is interested in operating that way. And I think we have in specifically the deal with Pep Biel. I think it's a really, really savvy move, and it's just, DP or TAM or whatever he is on the books. It's semantics. Forget it. We're too far in the weeds. It's just the team being resourceful to be able to maximize what they can bring roster wise onto the team.
And I think Tom Bogert tweeted out earlier too. I think Orlando's having a signing come in, and he would be a DB, but because it's a loan type player, they don't have to, they're only paying 3% of his salary. Where he's coming from, they're paying 97%. So to me, I think it's also a way for MLS teams to kind of start to skirt these roster rules and these roster limitations. If they can get savvy and convince clubs to basically help support paying the salary of certain players, benefit both team and player here, they can kind of skirt some of these roster rules by having high TAM level players without having to pay them a DP level spot.
It's the Rodrigo De Paul situation. If I go and buy him for £15 million outright, he is going to be a DP on our books, and we cannot bring him in within the rules. But, hey, I only need him for 2.5 months here at the end of the year. If you're willing to give a loan fee for this little window of time and have we're going to go through with it. It would be terrible, terrible business if we told you we were going through with it and then didn't. Gentleman's handshake. I can't let it be a guaranteed
wink,
contract.
wink, nudge, nudge. Right.
Wink,
right.
wink, nudge, nudge. But if you'll play ball with me, you're going to get more than the 15 million. You're going to get this 15.2 million, and we're all happy. Okay. Just have to find willing partners.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes back to, I mean, for a strength for Zoran being a former agent, dealing with players, clubs, understands kind of the ins and outs on this potentially. So I think it's
relationships. It's hey, I'm going to do this deal with you. I'm not going to burn you, and you know I'm not going to burn you because we're buds. We know each other. You know me. I know you. This is going to go through.
Exactly. So, fellas, that's all the questions I got for us. So, anything else you want to add on here before we transition out of here?
Tell your dogs I say hi.
I know they wanted to come in and play real bad at the very end there. Sorry, but
hopefully
they weren't too distracting.
I absolutely will.
Awesome. Well, Russell, Vaughn, I appreciate you guys filling in here, joining the show. It's always a pleasure. Make sure you like, subscribe to the show. Make sure you tag Russell and Vaughn on social media. Tell them how awesome they are whenever they're on the show. Vaughn, where can folks find you on social media if they want to follow you for your soccer content?
At VI Pollman on socials. I can't imagine anybody that's listening to this doesn't know that already, but
That's true.
Yeah.
Just in case. How about you, Russell?
Again, on the off chance you don't know, I am at Varner on Twitter. I am at YAlwaysRV on just about everything else. Come find me there.
Awesome, fellas. Well, appreciate it. Hopefully this Lease Cup match does pretty well this Thursday, but we'll see how it goes. I know, right? So, all right, well, we'll transition out. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and have a good rest of the week.